in the United States at this time, extending wholehearted support to Israel. Well, it's not a surprise for me and many on the panel, but for those who may wish to know, and there are lots of students here, this is nothing new. The Palestinians have been on the receiving end for more than 100 years. The Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916, which was a secret agreement behind the backs of the Palestinians. Then there was, of course, the Balfour Declaration between the British Prime Minister, at that time Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, and of course the famous Rothschild, Lionel Walter Rothschild. Now, for those who may not know, Rothschilds were no ordinary bankers. There were bankers to the Pope. There were bankers to the Habsburgs. There were bankers to the British royalty. There were bankers to the Dutch royalty. There were bankers to the French royalty. So there were no ordinary bankers. So when there was an agreement between the British Prime Minister or Foreign Secretary, whoever he may be, the important thing is not who the British Prime Minister was, the important thing is who he was dealing with. He was dealing with a Rothschild who in their own entity are probably more important than many prime ministers in the world, particularly in the early days if you were a banker to the Pope. And there were many other bankers to the Pope in Florence and in those of us who studied European history and Nice. So the point I'm making is that here was this backend. But ironically, when the mandate, the Palestinian mandate, the British and the French divided it between themselves. The French mandate, it was the old Ottoman Empire up for grabs, say, because they lost the war. And so it was up for grabs, and the British had mandated the Palestine. Palestine meant current Palestine, current Israel, and current Jordan. So they had Palestine, the mandate the Palestine. Then the rest, of course, Syria, Iraq, etc., Lebanon, were French mandate. Ironically, although there was a mention in the League of Nations, I think, when there was question of the British mandate over Palestine, there was question of Jewish homeland. But the Zionist movement that had developed in the 19th century had not specified an area where this homeland was going to be created. In fact, it was originally mentioned that one of the possible homelands was Uganda. The Ugandans are lucky, they've been spared a lot of misery, but Uganda was actually mentioned as the place where the Palestinian homeland could be set up. But, of course, the British agreed with the great bankers. And the great banker was a politician, and he was a leader of the Anglo-Jewish community. That took precedence. So, and of course, there was historic, I must confess, historic reverence in the hearts of all Jews for Palestine, as there is among Muslims. But that's a different story. So, what I want to say is, don't be surprised by President Bush being there. Now, the question is, who paid the price? Anti-Semitism is deeply ingrained among Europeans. Where did the Jews find succor and support? It was in Muslim kingdoms and empires. Before 1492, Spanish Roman Catholic reassertion in Spain, they found refuge in Spain. Then, of course, until the 20th century, they found until the caliphate was abolished and there was a new type of government in Ataturk. They had refuge in the Ottoman Empire. But the irony is that the Europeans decided to salve their conscience because there was deep ingrained anti-Semitism. And it was an anti-Semitism present in Europeans. It was present in France, It was present in Britain. It was present in Germany. It was present in Poland. It was present in Ukraine. It was present in Russia. So ingrained anti-Semitism. Now that it was ingrained among them and Hitler, therefore found a very fertile territory to blame Jews for everything. I mean, I have sympathy. Everybody should have sympathy for those who lost in the Holocaust. But that's a different thing. That we are not discussing that. We are discussing current situation. But Hitler found a very convenient ground when he could exploit that. Not even the great writers, the great William Shakespeare, the Merchant of Venice, the pound of flesh. It was ingrained where, there was a revolution against the Jews. You'll be surprised that until the French Revolution, I'll read it to you, until the French Revolution, the status of Jews in Europe remained tenuous. They were treated as outsiders and had few civil rights. And this is what I'm going to read. You will be very surprised to know. They were taxed as a community. They were not taxed as individuals. There was so much hatred towards the Jews in Europe, not in Muslim lands. There was hatred among the Europeans. I couldn't believe when I was reading this that they were taxed as a community. It is so repulsive. Yes, French Revolution tried to undo that with the message of liberty, equality, and fraternity. But even there, they were very clear, the revolutionaries. They said, yes, we are going to treat, as far as the Jews are concerned, as individuals. We treat them as equals, not as a community. So what I'm going to say is, and this is not what I'm saying, Harold Bloom of Yale University has in fact, and he's one of the greatest critics in English literature, has said that and I like to read, that Merchant of Venice had done, and I quote, real harm to the Jews for some 4 centuries. So it was European authors, scholars, poets. So sometimes people feel that Muslims hate the Jews. This is not correct. It's a question of fight for homeland. I do understand what the Jews want. I have studied history, and I've also said that the Zionist movement did not originally think of a homeland only in Palestine. They were seriously thinking about Uganda also. So I'm not one of those who hates anybody. I regard them as Ahle Kitab. So the point is, and forget all, I recently saw a Netflix series in which they mentioned that the Duke of Windsor, uncle of the present Queen, was in cahoots with Adolf Hitler. So there's very much of that. So I would like to leave you with this feeling that the Muslims paid the price, the Arabs, in fact, the Arabs paid the price, the Palestinians paid the price for the Europeans' desire to salve their conscience and also to have an outpost in the Muslim world, and an outpost which would be dependent upon the Europeans and later on, of course, the United States, where it became the leading power. You also raised other questions of various wars that and battles and confrontation between them. To save time, I have listed 13. Now, 13 is regarded as an unlucky number. I don't know whether it's unlucky for the Jews, for Israel, or for the Palestinians, but I'll just run through the list. 48, 49. Israelis call it the War of Independence. For the Palestinians, it's Nakba, the catastrophe. 750,000 Palestinians were ejected from the homeland. 15,000 were killed, and the Zionist movement occupied 78% of the old Palestine. 78. The Palestinians left with only 22. And they are not satisfied. They even wish to have settlements in that 22%. 78% was already grand. We come to number 2. I will list them. So the 13. The second Arab-Israel war, also known as the Suez War. Simply, I will say it failed when President Jamal Abdel Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal, so that Israel and the French and the British invaded. But so Americans were very different then. President Eisenhower refused to support that. He failed. Had Anthony Eden had to resign at that time. I have great respect for a particular Pakistani, but I have to be very truthful. And that great Pakistani who said about himself that the English language, BIA and I keep Pakistan together was Hussain Sheikh Zarwani. He died in very mysterious circumstances in Beirut. So I have great regard for him, and I'm happy to say that he made a statement when I was in school, and I was very, and so my father, we were very disturbed. He said, when he was asked, what do you do when Muslims are supporting Jamal Abdul Nasser in Egypt? He said, zero. Zero. Still zero. I was very upset because it was great Sohrawardi. It was no, those were not history separate issues. He was the Prime Minister of United Bengal. Gandhi had to call him to save and call from the savagery. But what does it tell you? By language, by interest, by taste, he was very pro-West. As were all political and military leaders of Pakistan. So here's the contradiction. Their hearts throb with the Palestinians, the Muslims, but by culture, they are deeply pro-West. All Pakistani elite, Jalsa, your class included, they are all very deeply pro-West. So one we could say that, don't be surprised if Musharraf did it, or Zawlak did it, or Ayub did it, or even Mr. Bhutto justified Pakistan's alliance with United States of America. So here is the contradiction. It's not just people of no consequence. I'm talking of Hussain Sheikh Sarwati, a man of substance. And if he had been alive, then would have been, they may not have been a Mujibur Rahman. I'm not going to tell you that story, it will take my minutes away. If you ask me, I narrate it to you. Mujib came because Sorwani died, and Sorwani died before Pakistan split up in a hotel in Beirut. So then we come to the next Yom Kippur War. The Arabs reclaimed their honor and self-respect when Anwar Sadat and Hafizul Assad launched an attack, surprised them, and actually Israel was on the back foot. The United States supported it wholeheartedly 24/7 airlift, which forced the Egyptians and the Syrians to enter into, now not the Syrians, but Anwar Sadat enter into a peace agreement. Ultimately, it came to became known as the Camp David Accords. But Americans came. Seventh is 1987. Last Palestinian Intifada. Not without going into details, 1,070 Palestinians killed, handful European Israelis. 8. September 2000, Palestinians. 3,000 Palestinians were killed. War in 1967 and 2000 sparked and poured of Palestinian grievances over Israel's control of the West Bank. Stagnating peace process former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon's way to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Those of us like you, Jelsam, and of course all of us, we remember that. So we are of that age. When he went there, there was outrage. So second Intifada. Again, Palestinians are butchered. Very few Israelis died. 2008. It's unbelievable. The Palestinians died in thousands. There were 3 civilians and 10 Israeli soldiers. The rate was 400 into 1. Why am I giving the numbers? It's for a purpose. Because we are coming to 7th of We are coming to 7th of October. That's why it's important to get the numbers. Getting 2000. Then there was number 11, Operation Protective X 2014. 2000 Gazans, 66 soldiers, 5 Israeli civilians. 2020, Israel Palestine crisis over Al-Aqsa Mosque. 200 people in Gaza, 10 Israelis. Now, why this will have implications? I hate killing of any human being, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, or Christian. So I don't gloat over it. Not at all. But why things may change is the unfortunate thing. This time, Israelis have lost maybe 14, 15, 16, 18, we don't know the numbers. Of course, Palestinians have lost many more. But why this is having this sort of a reaction? I I will ignore all the peace agreements because you asked me to talk about, the implications. But one thing is there, it is Israel, which violated the spirit of the Camp David Accord, which violated the spirit of the Oslo Accord 1, which violated the agreement of Oslo Accord 2. And if you talk to the, by no means, by the way, are the Norwegians pro-Muslim, but Norwegians were mediate. And if you ask the Norwegians today, I've been to Norway, they will tell you it is the Israelis who have broken all the agreements, giving very little. So what happened after that? Now the Israelis are talking to the policy. And you want me to stop, give me 5 minutes to indicate. I will stop. Or I will stop whenever you want me to stop. So you have to decide that. And just indicate to me during affairs. I'll immediately answer. So what Israel's next attempt after having won all the wars was to delegitimize the Palestinian Authority. You and I grew up, as did he, all of us, by regarding Yasser Arafat as a hero. He was a symbol of Palestinian resistance. But he was reduced to a state. And in order to find a solution, hardliners among Palestinians started distrusting. And hardliners were Jews distrust anybody who could think of a homeland for Palestinians. So the irony is, any peacemaker, Muslim or Jew, in this conflict, Saddam shot dead by a Muslim soldier. Then Menachem Begin lived, died of heart attack. Both of them got Nobel Peace Prize. The next Prime Minister of Israel and Yasser Arafat got a Nobel Peace Prize. His name will come back to me. Jack Rabin. He he was shot dead by an Israeli. Now we come to Arafat. Arafat is reported to be poisoned. And who said this? Not I, his Christian wife. She suspected he was poisoned. So here is the development before we start giving solutions. The Jews were killed, the Jewish peacemakers were killed, the Muslim peacemakers were killed. The hero of the Palestine movement was reportedly poisoned but died a very unfortunate man. So the attempt of the Israelis has been to delegitimize the Palestinian struggle. How did they do it? The first is, okay, this is 5 minutes or 3 minutes, what is it? 3 to 4. So this is the peacemaker on both sides. Now, unfortunately, there will be no easy solutions. But you can see the minds of the people. If you look at the initial reactions of the Western countries, there was no mention of the killing of civilians. Yes, of course, there was. And nobody is in his right mind going to say that in the civilian killed on the other side. But the civilians on this side, when they are killed, there's no mention. For many days, I saw all Western media showing babies among the Jewish community. But there was no Muslim woman weeping over a dead husband or a dead son. But this things started changing a bit after this killing at the mosque and at the hospital. Ironically, it's a Baptist hospital. Now, I would like to point out it's a Baptist hospital which has been attacked. Now, you'll be surprised. I only found out because I was interested in finding out. The European leaders in America stopped calling it Baptist hospital. They didn't call it hospital. They called it RRP hospital. Why? Because if you said it was a Christian hospital, it was sent as well as much persecuted by the Israeli state and the Muslim law. But the media blackened out that hospital. So this is geopolitical interest. Rush through one, two, three, real backward expanding. Why? Iran. Why do I say that? Very simply, I would run through it because I have to save time. The Hamas, the Hezbollah, and the Houthis in Yemen. That is supported by the Iranians. As a matter of self-defense, quite honorable. In order so that they are ostracized by Sunni as a Muslim, so they had them in front of them. So will they willingly just throw up their arms because there were two aircraft carriers? I don't know. Let's test. Let's talk. It's going to be very difficult for Iran. I don't think they'll throw up their hands to US society. They'll get divided. Already, not all Jews in America are supporting the current Prime Minister. In fact, there's a movement of young Jews which objects to killing of Palestinians says, not in our name. Not in our name. Number three, even important writers like Thomas Friedman have started attacking the Prime Minister of Israel. So they will get divided. What else can happen? Russians and Chinese, they stand together because they are being cornered in Ukraine and they are being cornered in the South China Sea. It has its implication in vast bilateral problem. Two-state solution, some feel peace either here or there, but I'll come to it at the end. PLO, Hamas has not been changed, PLO may have been, etc., etc. But I want to, because of what I concluded, I want to say there is a threat of the Arab League. And you must put this in context while analyzing. When Tunisian troops are put himself on fire, there was injustice. He was married. There was Arab Spring. All countries in the Arab world exploded. Egyptian dictator fell. It's a separate thing that Muhammad Morsi did not succeed. But it was such a threat. Now, if you have hundreds of thousands of Palestinians killed, do you think that the Arab rulers will not be threatened? So I leave it to you to decide. Number three, don't regard it easy. Yes, Israel has a mighty machine. It is a European military fighting power. They are composed of all European emigres and their children. They are very sophisticated. I dealt with them in Turkey. I met the deputy prime minister. At a certain time, if I'm asked a question, I can answer that. Many people regard that this place, this strip, Gaza Strip, will become Stalingrad for the for the invading Jewish troops. Why? It could become Stalingrad for the simple reason that despite the fact that German might was there, that destroyed Stalingrad, the rubble in Stalingrad prevented the invading troops and their tanks. Now, what people didn't know, they now realize that Hamas has used the opportunity. Its tunnels are not what you see in movies, in like coal mines. They are very sophisticated, wide tunnels. Man can stand, they can run through them. So although the numbers may be small, but the dedication is complete. Leningrad, I don't know whether it will be or not, it won't be good for anybody. Not Muslims, not Jews, not Christians, nobody in the world. But if they think it's going to be easy, they will get a very tough fight by the Hamas itself. Implications for Kashmir. India or Pakistan. There will be. If you ask me later on, I'll tell you. Thank you very much.